Got distracted here. All right. Good morning. Happy Saturday. Welcome. More CircuitPython and all right. That will be pacified somewhat. Let's try to do the usual intro here. If you're new and watching, first of all, thanks for checking it out. My name is Tim. I go by Foamy Guy on GitHub and Discord. I usually work on CircuitPython related stuff at this time of the week, Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Central Time. I am here streaming most weeks, working on some stuff related to CircuitPython. If you don't know what CircuitPython is, you'll learn more about it at the main website for the project right here, circuitpython.org. It is basically a version of Python that runs on tiny computers called microcontrollers. The way that it works, typically you plug it into your computer with a USB cable. It shows up like a thumb drive. You can edit some Python code on that drive. When you save it, the microcontroller will run the Python code for you. And then different microcontrollers have different capabilities and things. So these four here are kind of very generic. They have lots of I/O pins. You can hook up all sorts of other stuff to them. But there are more sort of purpose-built ones or ones with lots of built-in peripherals like the Fruit Jam here, which is what I am working on today. It's got a DVI output with a sort of HDMI-shaped plug on it. It has a DAC, an audio DAC for outputting audio, SD card, Wi-Fi. It's got USB host, all kinds of stuff on this device. I've got it fed into the computer with a USB capture card today, getting the DVI signal from there. But there's loads and loads of different microcontrollers. There are 613 of them right now that support CircuitPython. This is just one of the ways that you can program them. There are lots of other ways out there, like Arduino. Lots of folks know about. This is kind of an alternative to that. CircuitPython is open source. It is funded by Adafruit. They make CircuitPython possible by paying the team of folks who work on it. It's an open source project, so the core project and all the libraries and projects and everything are all published under open source licenses. You're allowed to take them, change them, do whatever you want with them. And that, I think, is certainly really cool. They pay me and the rest of the team who works on the project, and I really appreciate that. If you want to help support them and CircuitPython, one of the easiest ways you can is just purchase hardware from them. They manufacture different microcontrollers as well as all sorts of doodads that you can hook up to your microcontroller to make fun projects and do fun things with. Fun and useful. So I am back. Good morning, C. Grover, first of all. I'm back on the trail of this bug in the display text library this morning. I do have some coffee ready here. And I think I have sort of narrowed this down to pretty much where I'm got to assume the difference is going to lie. So we have, this is ultimately the height that we end up using for the box that we draw the text on. Just for a refresher, the thing we're looking at here is that label and bitmap label, they have different sizes, essentially. They calculate their height and width, and they come to a different number for height. This is even easier to see if we switch back, which I think let's do this now. So this problem is super apparent with these, with this font. I think, do we still have, I think I maybe still have a scale on here now, or just that big. Okay. almost don't quite have enough space there. Like down just a little so we're not quite so close to the top of the screen. Ultimately, we're going to be aiming to make these the same, and we want to make sure that we can pair them. Although, is this... I don't know why I chose to anchor it by the bottom. But I'm gonna change it now, I guess. I don't know why I did it. This would be nice because they would be a little bit. They would both be further down. It's nice because we won't be so close to the edge. At some point, we're gonna stack them on top of each other so we can make sure that our fix is good. Okay. So yeah, this one makes the problem very, very clear. We have one label, we have one bitmap label, and they're both essentially supposed to behave the same, but obviously the green box is way smaller than the pink box, and it is essentially just because its height comes out differently. Bitmap label height with this font comes out to 165, and the label height comes out to only 72. So the difference between those is the difference between the box. We do have the descender problem as well, too, where even if we just make the green box bigger, it needs to move also, probably. But thing at a time. So I think I want to print these because we have very similar formulas here. So this is kind of like the final formula that we're interested in for the label, the non-bitmap label, that generates the height. So it's ascent and descent. It is the number of lines minus 1. It's multiplied by height. It's multiplied by line spacing. Sorry, this is adding all of these things that are multiplied together. And then padding top and bottom. So pretty straightforward. The height, I traced it to here, is font.getBoundingBox1. So that is a different order of things in the bounding box for the font than it is for the label itself. In the label itself, that would be like X, or Y rather, XY with height. But height, it's labeling that as height. So we essentially have the font 1, font subscore 1, line spacing, those are multiplied, and then lines minus 1, which in our case actually is 0. So frankly, none of this stuff should matter, should it? And our padding is also 0, so that shouldn't matter. Good morning, Gordy G, over on the YouTube there. Nice to see you, my friend. So pretty much we have to have a difference, I think, in the ascent and descent. And on this side, we have something very similar. We have ascender max, descender max. I am assuming that those are similar concepts to these, even though they have different names. We have our lines minus 1 here. We are still multiplying it by something, but the thing we're multiplying it by in this case is a function. But if we look into this function, it is actually just multiplying, again, line spacing, multiplied by font.getBoundingBox, square brackets 1, which is exactly what we saw height was. So these are basically the same to my eye. And I believe with my math, that leaves the difference pretty much has to be in this ascent, descent, and descender max, ascender max. Either they're different concepts or they're not calculated correctly. One or the other. So let's get those printed out. And we already have ascent and descent here. So on the labels, well, we could just rerun it so we could see them both. 122 and 43. That's what we got for the bitmap label. Yeah, and on the label here we have only 54 and 18 rather. Ascent and descent, ascender and descender max either are different concepts or are not calculated correctly, or at the very least are not calculated the same way. So where do these come from? If the length of the bounding box is 4, which we know that it is, I printed that out yesterday. Bitmap label bounding box right there, it has 4 elements. Then those come from the bounding box. So ascender max, bounding box 1, which we took earlier as height, because this is just font bounding box. It's the same thing we looked at before. That's interesting. Of course, we do have this. This is setting, so I think I'm going to double check. I think this is setting this to this one and this to that one. If I yeah, okay. So ascender max, it's getting set to height. Whereas here, ascent is self.ascent, which doesn't come from anywhere. Fascinating. So, I mean, it must come from label base? Get ascent, descent. Ends private function to calculate the ascent and descent font values. So this was one thought I had, is like, maybe label base should be doing more of this. Like, maybe label base should be calculating the size, since they both extend that. But I also don't want to make too big of a change. Like, ultimately, I'm hoping to just kind of fix fix one thing. Okay. What's up? My apologies. I probably will mispronounce your name, so apologies for that. But Segnik Ghosh over on the YouTube. What's up, my friend? Nice. Thanks for checking it out. I'm here. So this is doing a lot of stuff. Getting a big M and a little J, a space, and a apostrophe. Going through all of them, it's getting the glyph from the font, which would be, I think, a bitmap, or maybe not a bitmap, but like an object with some numbers on it. I think it's actually an object with numbers on it. What is this? Say glyph object. Yeah, I think it just has numbers on it. Well, maybe it has a bitmap also. But this is just going, this is equal to the max of itself. So the previous values from the loop, we're in a loop here. This glyph's height and this glyph's dy. I don't know what that means. Descender y maybe? Would be weird. Use the descender y value. If that's what that is, it would be weird to use it For the ascender, kinda, but let's work like that. I'm not sure. Descender, and that does get a negative one of those, so it is going on there. Negative of that. So, kind of curious, what if we just kind of did the same thing here? So, these are basically what we want, and that is bounding box from the font index 1 and then negative of index 3. Bounding box from the font, so we should have font gets put on somewhere. Self.font. Should have a self.font. This one gets it passed in and it's in like a helper function. Suppose we could do that. Nice. I think that is pretty much what we want. Let's double check by putting these in the same place. And we should not see the bottom one peeking out. So we do, I guess it actually did manage to go both up and down correctly. So we did not end up with a problem of like it getting bigger on one side. But our anchoring is not quite working correctly still. Weird. So essentially the bounding box is different. And I believe the bounding box on the label, as opposed to the font, is XY width height. So that is the Y being different. One of them is 50 pixels further north, which looks basically like what happened. Not quite 50, or yeah, not quite 50. Maybe 40. Is it 48 maybe, or 47? Why would that be? Maybe the bounding box. The actual self underscore bounding box is also wrong. Maybe that gets set. That gets set somewhere else. I don't actually know. How does bounding box come to be? If it's none, return. Let's set the background color. I don't think we care too much about that specific function. Box is here. Okay. An update text. I'm concerned mostly with left to right, honestly. If we end up breaking some of the other ones, is unfortunate, but we could try to fix them later. I don't know how much the other ones get used. compared to just plain left to right. I think obviously gets used a lot. So top is the only thing different. Top does get changed here, but we're not using top to bottom. We are using left to right, and this sets left, but does nothing with top. So where does top come from for that? See, this kind of thing, I don't know what this does. Does this set them all to 0? You know, I guess in this case it does, because I don't know what it does. If they were, what if some of them existed before? But what if like top was 10? And then you did this. Then what? Still all 0. Okay. So equals 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 always sets everything to the left of the last equals to whatever's to the right of the last equals, it seems like. Okay, but then top is 0. Okay, here we go. Top goes to minimum of itself. And this is not in a loop, so it should still be 0. I think, right? Because it's set to 0 up there. We are one of these. And the bottom was the bottom was correct, was it? XY width height. Well, XY width height. Width. Is it XY width height or is it XY top bottom? I think it's width height. But this is totally just setting. Oh, no. Okay. XY width height. Yeah. Okay. And the height is correct. Well, the height is the same. I don't know if it's correct, but it's the same, which is what I care about. So definitely Y, and Y always comes from top. So this min thing here, or max, or whatever it was, this must be where. And again, I'm concerned with left to right only right now. Up right here. So left to right, the bottom. I was gonna say we assume that bottom is fine, but they know that, so we don't actually have an update text here either. The minimum of itself, again, I think would be 0. Negative glyph.height minus glyph.dy plus the y offset. Okay. But in bounding box, in bitmap label, how does bounding box set reset text? Equals bounding. Actually, I didn't realize this one had some of these. I thought these were all in label. Looks like it might. Oh no, it might not be all those same ones though. Upwards, downwards. I don't know. But we don't have that. We should be else, and then it's XY, so it's tile grid. So that's actually tricky because we don't have one big tile grid. I guess it would be the group. I think top equal. I think top right. Sorry, right top bottom equals 0 evaluates to right equals, and then in parentheses top equals, and then in parentheses bottom equals 0. Yeah, but I mean, in my head, like, bottom equals 0 doesn't return anything. So I don't get why that's, like, valid, right? Like, if I just go here and go bottom equals 0, it didn't return anything, and we know that because the REPL would have printed whatever it returned. So then, like, top should equal none, because bottom equals 0, return nothing. And then right should equal none, because top equals none. By my, like, how it seems like most Python syntax works to me. I guess really, though, you have one more layer of parentheses, though. You have one more you have one more set of parentheses around the 0. And then it works, because then you have bottom equals 0. But it still doesn't return. No, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Weird. I officially declare to me that syntax is weird. It is convenient, though. I will give it that. I do find it weird, but I can see it's, like, nice to not have to set 4 things to 0, or, like, you could try to use a tuple and destructuring, and then you have 4 zeros, but it's, like, still a little bit janky. It's very convenient. If I can, like, get it, if I can keep it in my head how it works, I can definitely see the convenience. Okay, let's just print top right here and confirm this should be getting that the other number, basically, whatever the bitmap label is not. Make sure, I want to make sure it doesn't change any further before we get to here. Okay, so yeah, negative 75, but that one's just negative 122. I don't even know why that would be negative 122 for the... That's kind of random for that anyway, but that's fine. Yeah. The one problem that we are going to have is that the bitmap label is basing its top off of the top of the tile grid, off of the Y of the tile grid, which is the top edge. But there is no tile grid. There is a group, though, and a group has a Y, so that should be fine, I think. I think there's a group. I mean, there's definitely a group. I guess I just don't know what it's called. Definitely a group, because there's a group in the thing, right? Try group. Local group. Nothing created, though. That's weird. Okay. So for top equals, let's try... I don't know if this will work. Top equals self dot local. Does it not show up anymore? Local group dot y plus self dot adding. Y offset's another one. I'm not sure what's up with Y offset, really. It is getting added in the old formula, though. You have padding. Actually, that's upwards, downwards anyway, though. Okay, it is taking into account the padding top. Yeah. Isn't there a baseline to the text which descenders go below? Yeah, I think so. Like the G is a descender, and like this is the baseline for the rest of the letters stop vertically. But I'm not sure if that's what this is necessarily or not. I'm not sure why there's no concept for it here. I'm skeptical that this will work, but maybe. No. Worse now, actually, because it's 0. Okay. So, okay. I think, what if we... What if we don't do the group, but get the first thing? I think new lines might break that, honestly, but I'm not sure. But just out of curiosity to see if it would work, like, what if it was local group 0, which should be a tile grid, should theoretically be at the same place as the tile grid for the other kind, I would think. Let's see, and is the baseline position defined based on the top or bottom edge? I do not know. Yeah, it's, I mean, it's somewhere in the code, but I don't know specifically. Index error out of range. Index error out of range. Local group 0 doesn't exist. It's the first... We haven't put the first character in. Okay. Boy, that's tricky. So this one comes from the Y of the tile grid plus the padding. So how do we set the Y of the tile grid? Label position offset minus Y offset minus padding top. And then let's make sure it doesn't change. So self.tilegrid.y equals, no, it does not appear it should ever change. So let's go back to this one where it gets declared. So label position Y offset. Unclear how that's different from just Y offset. Base alignment. No idea if we're using that or not. Maybe we're going to discover the answer to your question. Base alignment true. Is that even a thing over here? Yeah. Get you. Box offset. I feel like we're back in circles now, though, because create background box is where box height came from. Print all the things. Indeed. Okay. So, I mean, this looks kind of similar to this. some ways. This is not accounting for padding at all, but in they're negative. Kind of strange. Okay. So what is label position offset, Y offset, and then padding top should still be 0. I think we printed that before. And we already printed ascent. Printed Y offset. Or padding to use, but hopefully. But Y box, so all of this leads back to Y box offset, but Y box offset then does not go into box height, which is what we care about, right? It does, because mauve Y comes the Y box offset, which gets passed to the tile grid. The current tile grid. For this one... No, for the background. For the background. Wait. For the background. This is slightly wrong, kind of, actually. There's a... I mean, it's not exactly wrong. I wouldn't call it wrong. I mean, I did, but I shouldn't have. It's not really wrong, but one thing that it does not depict is the background, the thing that makes the pink or the green. Which I guess there's multiple ways you could do. The pink and the green could just come from these tile grids. But it looks like they're not. It looks like there's actually a, as this would suggest, a background box. So wherever we tried changing the top a minute ago, and we couldn't do it because we didn't have a self._tile grid like this one did, can we get this tile grid, the background one? Where does this go? Local group, insert 0. Okay, that makes sense. But we can't because we already tried that. Yeah, there has to be a background tile grid because otherwise, yeah, you can't, like before I just said you could put the color in this tile grid. That won't work, actually. You can't do that because of padding. If you wanted to use a different padding, this would not work. You can't, like, make this bigger. This will always be the size of the bitmap, which will always be the size of the glyph that comes from the font. While convenient for immutable objects like numbers or strings, chained assignments can lead to unexpected behavior when dealing with mutable objects like lists, dictionaries. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about in that context. If you assign a mutable object using chain, all variables in the chain will refer to the same object in memory. That means if you modify it, then they will all change essentially, or the one that they point to will change. Interesting. That's good to know. So where does create background box get called, and why is it not at the beginning of update text? Because it's inside set background color. It definitely goes into local group at 0. So where does set background color get called? At the end of update text. Is there any reason we can't do that in the other order? I mean, honestly, doing the background first kind of makes sense to me because they get layered on top, but it is using insert 0, so it doesn't matter which one you do first for the purposes of how it will appear. Well, so the problem though is this is wanting to use the sent bounding box. Okay, I'm just gonna move it and see what happens. Well, hold on. Yeah. Actually, let's move it to. Let's move it to here because we want to basically use it right here if we can. No, it's still a 0. I bet we got that still in an initialization thing and it didn't do its thing. But we don't set the bounding box until down here, and it should be done by then. But what if I ignore the top that is calculated and just set it to the top of the background when everything is done? So this can calculate and it will be wrong. Now I don't care. But then what if right before we set it here, we said top equals self dot local group 0, the background tile grid, dot y plus padding top. What? Why would this... Where... I have so many questions. I have more questions than answers now. Where did the green go, first of all? Why is the green gone? I guess, are we layered on top of the green? So, like, where'd the green go? That's one question. Why is that still negative 75, even though... Well, I guess this value just is negative 75, isn't it? Because it's probably set from the same numbers. Where did the green go? Why is green gone? Yeah. So green was broken before I tried that, but how did I break green? Green. I don't understand what have I had done to break it. I thought we were back to normal, basically. I put this back. That's how it was. Did I not put... I didn't put the background color back. Background color needs to be back at the bottom. I got rid of it, probably. Did I get rid of it? Or just not put it back? Not put it back. Okay. Right. So that failed because it tried to do whatever and it didn't work. I don't actually remember where it was before. It has... We saw that logic in there. It has logic in there that said, like, still initializing. It doesn't do anything. I assume that is what we got tripped up by. Display text open. Table. Oh, man. We are... Okay, it's after the text. That maybe makes sense because it used the text inside there to get the size or something. Oh no, it used the text inside there to get the size or something. Should I have set text first? And then would it have worked? Wait, what? Hold on. Oh, right. Actually, so we do still have the one other change in, don't we? We still have... I don't even know where I did that at this point. Somewhere I changed it to be more like this. I overrode the height of the box. It's visible. But the bounding box is wrong, which is what we're trying to fix. Yeah. Text was... If that was there, would we get the color? No. Okay. So, unfortunately, we don't have any easy... We don't have any easy way. And it's still broken. I didn't save. Okay. So, basically... we need to figure out why these variables differ and try to make them the same. We can't just... Because basically this one is... The bitmap label has it much easier. It's effectively just getting the Y from the tile grid and that's it. I mean, the padding is in here, but this should be 0. But the tile grid itself is doing all of these things. So what are all of these actually printing? So the label position Y offset is 0. The Y offset itself is 122. Okay. Which is negative of the ascent. And then here, so top should be 0. I all of those things together be able to tell us how we got to what we got to for top. Object. Why does this work? How come top is, oh, self.top? Okay. So first time through, top is 0, negative glyph height is negative 78. Glyph dy is 3. So negative 78 minus 3. Y offset is 0. Negative 78 minus 3 should be just me, or is it going the wrong way? Oh, I have a minus sign here also. So that is actually negative, so it's minus negative. That's why it goes up the number line. Okay, yeah. So negative 78 minus negative 3, which is plus 3, gets us to minus 75. And then we never get anything smaller than that. So we always stay at that. And then by the end, Label ascent, descent. Can I just stick negative ascent on the bounding box? Because we want to get to negative 122. Oh, what's really happening? Right. So I stopped using self.ascent and self.descent. So this is the one change we have in that's not just a print that is different from stock, to the best of my memory. But boy, I'm getting a little lost if I'm honest. So ascent is the font bounding box 1, and this is basically what ends up in the label bounding box 1 also, but negative. Maybe. I don't know if it switches or not, actually. I think it does switch. Yeah. Ascent 122. Okay. So could we just use negative self.font.get bounding box? And would that actually work? Okay. The size does not appear extraordinarily broken. The bounding box is now correct. Well, matches. Again, I don't know if it's correct compared to like how it should be intrinsically in the universe, but they should match. That part I know, and that's what I'm aiming for. But the true test is the stack, right? Because that's where it went wrong last time. What led us down the second half of this rabbit hole. Why? We need to fix the bottom also somehow? I think we might need to fix the bottom also somehow. So bitmap label is XY 501 118 for width height. Width height is 501 118. Label is 501 165. We're not visually drawing that extra height, but because the bounding box has that height in it, it throws off the anchor positioning. There's a lot going on in that label. I didn't know it measured font as it goes. I feel you could simplify and base the layout on the character M. Very possibly. Yeah, I mean, the label, the non-bitmap label was the first one that existed. And I would argue just conceptually it's more complex than the bitmap label, since the bitmap label only has a single stack of things rather than like one tile grid for each character. And then I will say these add a bit to the confusion, having all these things supported. I almost think it would be nice if there was a subclass, like a directionable label. It's not a great name for it, but even though I'm like just trying to focus in on left to right, there is still a lot going on with only left to right still. It could very likely be simplified, and I would argue, honestly, the bitmap label one is essentially a simplified version. We kind of just kept both because lots of code uses the other one because it came first. So this is subtracting bottom and top, and we just randomly changed top, which means that we came up with a different value. For the height. Bottom comes from this currently. And our height here comes from type box Y. Which self passed in. No. Not get passed in. It gets set in this giant tuple thingy from text bounding box. Oh boy. I wonder if we have wrecked the other version of background tight. I'm not even going to test it until the end. Honestly, I don't even want to know yet. I said I wonder, but the truth is I don't want to know. So 1, 2, 3, 4. No, that's the wrong thing. We want type box Y, which is 0, 1. It's the index 1 thing that comes out of this, which is final box height top height, which comes from bottom top here, and looks like actually top was done the same way. If we change top here also, that'd be fine. If we shouldn't do this down here. They're stacked the other way. Why did this change? Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Wait, what? Why did I do that here? I am so lost. Okay. Okay. We need to only change label, I think. We need to only change label, and we need to make it so that its height is going to come out correctly to 118. And we now know that its top is minus 122. And its bottom is whatever minuses with that. That is not even the same thing. Why would we want that type sulfate? We know that its bottom minuses with that to get to 165 when it should instead not. So top. Okay. We have 43 minus 122. Well, it gets flipped. We have 43 minus negative 122. It adds. But what do we want? We want negative 118. So we need bottom to be... We need bottom to be what? Cannot even... I'm like... this is like turning my brain into spaghetti, honestly. We want 118. What can we start with and subtract? Want 118. What can we start with and subtract? Minus 122. What can we add 122 in order to get this? Minus 4. So if we just totally hijack bottom to be minus 4, do we get the right numbers? In the right placement? Yes. Okay. Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, negative, like, it's fine. It's allowed in display IO. You can move stuff off the screen, so you can go negative Y and it will move it above the screen. Or I think you can move it outside of a group. That one I'm not sure about, actually. I don't know if you can move it outside of a group. You can definitely move it outside the screen, though, with negatives. But yeah, I don't know why such heavy use in here of, like, the ascender is a negative of that, and I don't know what's going on with that. My guess is that they're like starting in the center and then like going up. But that guess is really just based on how the XY positioning works by default. And I don't actually know if those things are related or not. The bottom gets set how? Bottom gets set as the max of bottom y minus... What is y? Current y pixel, basically. y pixel minus whatever dy is plus the y offset. Let me move this stuff. And add bottom. And add y. And we already have glyph.dy, we already have y offset. We have everything we need. No, that's... And one thing that's awkward is that we're continually redoing it for every character, but I guess that's why the background comes at the bottom. Those are 0, that's 0. And those lead us to minus 75. Is effectively where we stay the whole time. For bottom, start on 0. Y is 0, dy is that. Y offset is 0, so 0 minus -3. Then bottom is 3. And next time through, y is still 0. dy is still -3. Y offset is still 0. So we're going to get still bottom is 3 again. And it should just keep going. But here, dy changes. Oh, here dy changes. But it's only -2, so we end up with 2 instead of 3, and we have a max, so we take the bigger one, which is the old value of bottom. There we have a 5, so we get up to bottom 5. Back to 2, we stay on 5. 11, that's got to be the G, I guess, probably, right? Maybe that's saying the descender goes 11 pixels below the baseline. Maybe that's what that means. I'm not sure. Oh, no, that's got to be the G. Comes before the G. Big G. I guess it does go lower, doesn't it? Yeah. Interesting, okay. Really thankful for anchor point and anchor position. Does it get set by default? I mean, I agree. I tend to always use anchor point and anchor position. I find them the most convenient way to move stuff around. I'm not sure what you mean, does that get set by default? The anchor point and the anchor position? That's what you're asking? Do those get set by default? Not. I mean, they get set to something, but they get set to essentially the same default as XY. I think. I believe they're none. I think they get to be whatever numbers they would need to be in order for it to be in the same spot as where the default for XY is, which is far left and then halfway above the screen, which is like kind of a strange default, but is the default. So none of those numbers were -4. So I don't even know how we're gonna approach that, honestly. Is anything on the font -4? Is that negative of the third thing like we saw before? Maybe we should just use that for bottom? Be easy, I guess. That turns out to be the case. No. 0, 1, 2, 3. In fact, we end up wait. Yeah. I don't even really know what these represent, honestly. It is interesting. We do end up actually with bottom matching the font bounding box, but that's probably less interesting than I'm making it out to be. We're probably just setting it to that, but we're not, though. We're setting it to all these things. And all these things happen to calculate to that, which is interesting. It seemed like a waste to calculate it to all of those when we could maybe just use the one from the font. I guess it's possibly trying to not... We have background type false, so it shouldn't be trying to like squeeze itself. I don't know. Does this even define a bottom anywhere? Bottom equals y start. Oh, in place text, I think is actually kind of like update text. It does say bottom equals the maximum of bottom in y position and current glyph.dy. And then bottom returns here. That's a bounding box. Oh my goodness. Can I have this file, please? No? Okay. It doesn't do anything with the result. The reset text calls place text. Place text returns a bounding box, but nothing ever happens with it. That's on bitmap label, so it's going to be here somewhere. I don't even know what's up with that. That's just like another different number. Okay, BRB. Okay. Slightly new plan of attack. Currently, this is setting the bounding box with all these left, top, right, bottom, top, bottom, all this stuff, right? Basically, everything but bottom is what we want it to be. If we count this bodge that's just hammered in here, which I do right now because I need to. Sanity. We are already calculating the correct height somewhere because the colored box ended up the right size. So how did we calculate the size of the colored box? And then can we just do that down there instead of all this stuff we're doing? So we need, so a bunch of these things are on self height, self line spacing, padding top, padding bottom. We should have access to all those, no problem. Ascent and descent, I don't know about. I'm going to go split in the same file here. It's going to go all the way down in here. So we need to know lines, and we need to know ascent and descent as they were when we created this box. And so, okay, ascent and descent, that's easy because those come from this. So we can easily get those the same way as we did there. Lines came from where? Lines got passed in. That's unfortunate. I mean, lines is just the number. Yeah, it's basically it's the number of new lines minus 1. Not counting the one at the end. Okay. Label box width height. Maybe this is wrong. Honestly, this feels wrong. Where does this come from? Bitmap label width height. This says the height is 165. And then this says the bounding box, XY width height is 118. So maybe bitmap label is also wrong. Where's label box width height? Label box width height right there. Okay. Yeah. So bitmap label width height are now the same as label width height, which are now the same as label bounding box width and height. And now our problem is actually that bitmap label says that its bounding box is 118. So how big is it for real? Is it 118 or is it 165? To find that out, we make another thing. I will call this ruler bitmap. The height of this is going to be 118 to start with. The width is, let's just say 20. The colors, we can just have one. Ruler palette. One palette. Let's make it, we're using green and pink. Let's do yellow. Good. Ruler tile grid. Yep. Main group. Append. Ruler tile grid. Ruler tile grid dot y equals text area, which is the bitmap label. I should rename it. Not y. Make it the same or no? I don't know. Even if I have to like nudge it, I'll I do that backwards? That backwards. Why that is where it is, but that much right now. In fact, what we should do is let's separate these back out again. Actually, yeah. Okay. I'm going to go back to 1.0 here, and I'm going to put this at the bottom. But I don't know if it's going to work. Okay. So that is on the bottom of the screen. Very convenient with anchor positioning. And what we can do here is just display.height minus 118 because we know, or we could even do ruler bitmap.height because we know that. Oh, I should have done that. It stays live anyway. Okay. 118 is wrong. And just to make super duper sure, if this was 0, and this was 0, and that would be in the top left, and we could easily put our ruler in the top left also and verify that it is not the same height as that, even though like I can see it with my eyes. Just kind of don't trust my eyes all the way right now because they're a little bit mush along with my brain trying to follow all the code. You just leave it. It should be already at 0, 0, I think. Yeah. Okay. So bitmap label bounding box is also wrong. But I really hate to change both. So that's really unfortunate. I wonder if there'd be a difference with the monospace font. I'm not sure. I don't think that monospace should matter because really everything I've messed with is height. Monospace doesn't really matter so much for height as it does width. Scale. Scale I don't think matters because scale is always scaling the pixels by a full amount. I think if we fix it for the unscaled version, it will apply to the scaled version the same way. And I guess to answer about like the API, like bounding box is always unscaled. I believe the numbers in bounding box always represent the unscaled size and position. On a comment in the library, scaling is provided at the group level. Yeah, totally true. So the both label and bitmap label have a group at sort of the highest level inside of the label, and the scaling is applied there. And so everything inside of there gets scaled by that whole number, whatever it is. So I think as long as we're pixel perfect correct at scale 1, we should always remain pixel perfect correct at the rest of the scales. And this comes out of that giant function, right? Yeah. And it is... Wait. We don't care about tight, though. We care about loose. Right? Yeah, we care about loose because background tight equals false. Why? Wait, why is this using tight? If we have text, get all these numbers. If background tight is true, but it's not for us, so I don't care. Box Y equals loose box Y. Y offset equals loose Y offset. Box Y gets the padding added to it. Box Y gets used as the size of the bitmap. Y offset gets passed into here or something. Label position Y offset starts existing, which is different, but 0 in our case, based on the printouts. Tile grid gets created, gets put at a position. Okay, that's like backwards text stuff. I'm pretty sure. Upwards, downwards, I don't care about. Okay, I mean, is this the bug? Is the bug that this is setting it? This is always setting it to tight. Is it not? Am I crazy? Okay, from the top, reset text. The font is none. Set the font. I don't think that matters. Line spacing, okay. I think that matters. Save text. Text equals text. Save text. This is like a thing you could tell it not to store the text as a string if you like are in extremely tight memory. Then you can tell it not to do that. I don't know if it's that practical, truthfully, because the bitmaps take a lot more space than the string does, but I don't know. Check for an empty string. So we do not have an empty string. So we go to here, which is basically where we started before. We calculate all these things, including a loose box Y, which I think is actually a height and not a Y, I think, right? This is in bitmap label, so this is at the top. Loose box Y is 165, which is what it's supposed to be. So background tight false is being ignored for the purposes of the height inside the bounding box of the bitmap label. Because these should both be loose, because tight is false. But okay, and then I got ahead of myself. Let's keep on rolling here. So we got all these numbers. We printed this. We know it's correct. If that's true, which it's not, then we do these things here. So box Y is equal to that. So that part's correct. Y offset, I don't know. I'm still not really entirely up on what all the different offsets are. Y gets padding, gets set to the size, so that's why visually it works. Place text into the bitmap. I added this, which gets ignored. We create this thing, which again uses box Y for the height. It's tile height here because it's a tile grid, it's 1 by 1, but tile height is the size in pixels. If the direction is not the previous direction, so we don't care about that, we're not changing directions. If the direction is upwards or downwards, which it's not, so else bounding box equals, yeah, we're using the wrong numbers here. This should be if where's background tight? Self.background tight. Then that, otherwise it should be the loose ones. I think there is no loose box X though. I think X doesn't change with loose, to be more specific. Yeah, there's just a box X. Where did tight box X come from? Got set to box X. Okay. Why does that exist? We should just use box X, I would argue. In fact, isn't box Y is getting set to loose box Y? We don't even need this if statement. We could just use box X and box Y, because these get set. Get set to tight there, get set to loose there. Yeah, just silly. Let's not do this. And this should just be box X, box Y, because those will be the values that it used for the visual thing. Okay, so now that is 165, which it was before, but now this is 165 and not 118. And these now match. 0, minus 122, 501, 165. 0, minus 122, 501, 65. Okay, now let's check a few more things. And then... Right. So if this was 165, we should have the ruler as the exact same size as the text. Beautiful. And if we move it to the bottom, okay. Sorry if that was loud. And if we just get rid of the ruler, and we go back to putting these on top of each other. Forget to load this up so we could look. Oh my goodness. They are layered on top of each other perfectly. Let's make sure by doing it the other way too. If we append that after that, they should stack the opposite way, pink on top, and we should still not see the other one leaking out. Yeah. Whew, I feel like we have come a long way. Okay. I am not feeling up to cleaning up all of my prints and getting this actually PR ready right now, but what I'm gonna do is update this, make a new branch. I'm just gonna name it after the issue. Issue 214. And then I'm just going to copy all of label and all of bitmap label. And then an exercise for future Tim is going to be go back through and remove all the prints. Hopefully find that we didn't leave anything extra super weird anywhere. That means that it's actually broken and I don't realize it. And then like pre-commit and make this ready passing. And also check background not tight. Okay, let's try that real fast actually. I'm not going to do anything about it no matter what the results are, but I am slightly curious. I mean, we shouldn't have affected it, I don't think. Ugh. I think that's because oh. I think this is basically because, well, yeah. Point is, it's broken. So we need to fix background tight also. It's unfortunate because that one was actually working before, but I must have broken it inside of one of them. In this case, I think pink is correct. Pink is what background tight is supposed to do, I believe. Which is like perfectly contain the thing. No extra room anywhere. There's no extra room at the bottom. There's no extra room at the top. But we still have a 65 here. Okay. Well, it's close. We fixed the default case of background tight false. So we need to go back and fix the other case, which wasn't broken before. So hopefully it won't be that hard to fix. I think I just got overly aggressive with where I reset the top like this. I'm pretty sure some part of this needs to account for background tight, and it's not currently. So probably in the place where I stole this from, in the create background box or whatever it's called, there was probably some logic for background tight or not somehow, or else maybe some of these numbers got manipulated by background tight, but somehow we're not getting that carried into here. Hopefully we'll just need to bring it through to here and then it will work also. But that is going to do it for me. I am going to hang it up for now. Probably go to the yard, which is fun in a different way. But it's very nice out, so that's actually going to be pretty cool. Thank you to everyone for hanging out. Hope you all have a good rest of your Saturday and a good weekend. I should be back, I'm pretty sure, on Friday for the deep dive. So Friday afternoon, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, over on the Adafruit channel for deep dive. Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Central next week, I should be back for this stream. So until then, I bid you farewell, and I say thanks, and see you later.